and I are going to try a different kind of show. We're going to go ahead and call it Rear View Mirror. And what the point of this show is to explore an alliance's past. I mean, we kind of want to dive into some of the more OPSEC things that have been far enough removed where it's okay to kind of dive into it. So the goal is to interview these different leaders that may have made some decisions, whether that's signing a treaty, declaring a war, making a block, whatever the case may be, and what their thinking was behind it, what was going on in Orbis that made them want to pull that lever, and why they may have chosen some moves that they decided to go with. So that's the premise of the show with Rear View Mirror, is looking back on what was and why what happened, right? So to this debut episode, just since I've got some background with them, and Lefty had some background with them, and just because it was a last minute kind of thing, we decided to go with Cataclysm, so we can get some good insight on it. And so yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and just kind of go straight into it without any foreplay. So you good, Lefty? Is your mic working?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Velyni? You there, buddy? He immediately left. Okay, so
Too much pressure. Way too much pressure.
Yeah, here. Let's try this again. Perfect. Velyni, you there? Yeah, mic's not working, buddy. That's all right. We'll move forward here. So, like I said before, we're going to dive into Cataclysm. So how this is going to work, normally, it'll be Velyni and I asking questions to the previous Alliance leader or Alliance, decision maker that we'll be interviewing to get these kinds of insights.
Test.
There you are, Velyni. Hey, there he is.
There's that beautiful voice, and then he mutes himself right away.
Perfect. So, so anyway, we'll go ahead and usually get the background of the Alliance as far as that person we're interviewing can go back. And then we'll move forward throughout time. We don't need to get into the nooks and crannies on everything. We don't want to bore you guys. We will try to get into some of the bigger things. But since Cataclysm, both Lefty and I were present at the creation of the what would you want to call them, legacy alliances that created Cataclysm. We'll go from there. So first and foremost, thank you, Lefty, for hopping on. Thank you guys all for listening. Velyni, thanks for making this happen too with such a short notice. So with Cataclysm, some background on it, and Lefty jump in whenever, but some background on it. It started with an alliance called Soup Kitchen. So back in 2018, tail end of 2018, Charlie Traveler and I decided to make an alliance called Soup Kitchen. And what we did is we did something called the Hobo Express prior to that. So we had a radio show called Great Job with Kevin Charlie, RIP. And this event called Hobo Express, what we would do is hop to a different alliance every week, and then on our weekly show, we would give a review of that alliance. In the meantime, though, what we were doing is creating a brand new alliance called Soup Kitchen, and we would plant the members that we poached to join or got to join this alliance, and we would plant them in these different alliances that we knew we were going to review, and then we'd set up this fake wheel thing that we knew where it was going to land, and then show our screen and show where we were going next and make it look all random. So then we'd go to the next place and review that. And then when we left, the people that were going to make the alliance with us left with us. So eventually there was a train of like 100,000 nation score jumping from an alliance to an alliance. And Lefty, I think you were one of the first to join the Hobo Express. I don't know what you remember from that time.
Yes, I do, because you went to KT first and picked up Rebel, and then carried on so forth and picked up JCal, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moved off to me because I was in a micro. At the time, we couldn't jump over to the alliance that you wanted to. So you had to hit the micro first. And then we ended up going. We ended up going to Knights Radiant or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it went to TS, Rose, TKR, a bunch of them. So anyway, and like I said, we won't get too far into the nitty gritties on there. I know Zig said this is just an excuse to talk about soup. That's funny. Yes, but not for very long. So I won't stay on soup for very long. I understand why you'd say that though, because the soup is hot. But regardless, so that was formed. We had the government was it was Charlie, myself, it was Lefty, Dynamic, who was the leader of Rose at the time, came over. We had Rod Ivanko, who was the 2IC of TKR, I believe, at the time, came over. We had the Rebel Man, RIP, who was in KT, ended up coming over. And then we had, who else filled that gov out?
Sam T.
Sam O.T. Thomas, right, from Rose. But anyway, yeah, so we had a pretty good gov. That went through. We created a block with TKR and COS called Chaos Block. It was the first established mini-sphere. I mean, some could argue Ketog, but Ketog was technically founded after Chaos. But, I mean, KT and TGH and Rosway were a thing prior to that, but they weren't, like, an official block. So anyway, we'll take the title. Chaos Block was the first mini-sphere. Prior to that, the web was all tangled up. And the first war that we did was against World Task Force and FARP within just like a week of founding, I want to say. And the whole point of that was just to see where we were at engaging our alliance on our Milcom and our organization. And it ended up being a very easy war. A lot of us were pretty new to the game, so I don't think we really realized how easy of a war it would be. World Task Force in Farkistan. They doubled our size, but that was an easy war. I got to meet a couple cool people from it though. So Superman, he was a really cool dude.
So Kev, what you're telling me is World Task Force for 8 years has been dog shit?
Yes. That's what I'm telling you. 100%. Wow. That's true.
Actually, longer than 8 years because they came over from CA.
Cybernation. Yeah. It's more like 15 years. But Globoid, he's super nice. There's a lot of nice people over there. But anyway, so that was the first war, and then a few weeks after that, Surf's Up happened, and so we got hit by TGH and KT and those guys, and then that immediately bled into NPO's last time, or dial-up war, whatever you want to call it. That war went almost a year, as most of us know, and that ended up causing a lot of people to delete. I mean, from all over Orbis. I mean, if you were a part of that time, I'm sure you remember that year-long war.
Horrible.
Really bad time. And I will say, so like, for instance, there was some people thinking, oh, Surf's Up was a setup war just to lose infra to then hit BK. That's not true. I will say that's not true. That is a conspiracy, and it's not true. It's not a narrative that it was a conspiracy.
Why don't you speak on that then, Kev?
Yeah, I will. So we did get hit by Surf's Up. We were not expecting it. So Ketog, which consisted of Knights Templar, Imperia, Guardian, Grumpy, Oblivion, and TGH virus. I don't know. But they milled up, and people are like, who are they going to hit? And we thought they were going to hit BK. This is what Chaos thought. We didn't think they were going to hit us because we seemed to get along pretty well. And then all of a sudden they came in and swooped us. They did ask for us to participate in a few different wars to hit someone, and we were saying no at the time. We wanted to push pause, and we're trying to figure out what we had as Chaos first. Looking back on it, it probably would have been a good idea to just go in with them when they asked, but hindsight's 2020. And so they ended up hitting us instead. They already milled up, and so they ended up hitting us, which really sucked. It basically killed 7 kingdoms. It killed COS, Church of Spaceology, who was also in Chaos.
Killed Soup too, to be honest.
And it killed a large portion of Soup. I mean, it was so we were a brand new alliance, and that war after Surf's Up and NPO's last time, we would have been at war, 50 of the 52 weeks that we existed of that first year. So that was a real hard situation. But that was not set up. It wasn't a fake war. Surf's Up. They didn't give us a heads up that they were going to hit us ahead of time. That is just a narrative pushed out by that coalition, by NPO and BK. And maybe that's what they thought. Maybe they thought it was fake, but it was not. We were blindsided by it. Now, after the war began, and we found out more about like the BK and NPO relationship and this other war they planned. Then we started to game plan together even when we were at war together. So that part was true. We did have some chats behind the scene, but the initial blitz that was not manufactured. So and then so we know how that war went, NPO's last time. In the meantime, there was a lot of politics going on in the background during that war, which is pretty interesting. A lot of very toxic politics in the background. The peace talks were terrible. So they kept prolonging peace on purpose. So they would just give us bullshit terms where they knew we weren't going to accept. And then they would, when we did accept them, then they'd keep moving the field goal posts. So that way, we couldn't get peace. And the whole objective was for these different alliances to disband and for them to, quote, win the game is what it came out with when George leaked those logs. So that was Sphinx was in those talks for the NPO side. It was SEAL Team 6 from UPN. He was also a big ass holder in that time. Under was in that. That was and then Requentin refused to be in the talk. So it was Adrian, Kigaz, and me, I think, were the three on our side. Eventually Partisan ended up coming in too once he came back from retirement. But that was a horrid time, a big bummer within the game. And I just to throw something out there, I do remember, I saw something where people are comparing House Dark to NPO's terms, and they are NPO-esque,
close,
but it's not the same. You know what I mean? Like, I think they're willing to peace, so it's not quite the same motivation behind it. Not great terms, let's be real, but seeing firsthand like those logs and then being a part of that, it's a little bit different. But I just wanted to throw that out since it's kind of relevant. But
Kev, we should look into for future shows, seeing what kind of old logs we can get.
I do have some of those logs. That's a really good idea. I would have to dig for them, and I don't want to eat up too much time. But
we can do that another time.
Okay, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I do have some of those negotiation logs, and they're kind of interesting. I did post one of the logs, just a short screenshot, in the debate floor. So that was a part of the one of the negotiations that we had. So they had a time set. So if you didn't agree to the negotiations within 24 hours, they delayed it for a month, and then you'd have to negotiate a month later with NPO. Is how they did it. Is how they kept trying to push the field goal posts further and further and further. So anyway, so NPO's last time happened. In the background with the politics, there were some relationships forming between like goons, which we all think ick on goons, and rightfully so. But in the meantime, they didn't seem that bad for a little while. So goons and TKR, for instance, TS. There was some background politicking because goons seemed the most rational of that coalition. So we were trying to future-proof what the next thing would look like to try and have something up against NPO.
Let that take in, Kev. And rearview mirror, they seem the most rational.
They really did. And once, more things started coming to the light on goons, it started to kind of, we started to look at a different direction at that point. But in the meantime, something that was kind of a creative idea. So I was talking to Kigaz because I was pestering him forever about joining Soup Kitchen. And instead, we came up with an idea. It was an Arrow. I remember AERO was part of this too, because he was on the other side of the coalition. And then there's a few other people on the other side of the coalition that talked about how their coalition was just a bunch of BS and they wanted to do something about it. So we talked about making a new alliance. So in my head, like Soup was in rough shape. Like Soup was basically going to turn into a worse version of Bourbon Street, kind of, you know what I mean? Like just a shell of an alliance at that point, because that war just decimated them. Like I said, 50 out of 52 weeks at war. Terrible. Charlie, all these people stopped playing. So talking to Kigaz, Hodor, a bunch of other folks, we're trying to make a Coalition C. So this goes, there's Coalition A for some context, and then Coalition B. So that was, Chaos and Ketog side and then NPO side. And so we wanted to make a Coalition C where there's some friendlies on both sides. We can kind of get out of the war, start to try and make some kind of coalition against NPO side to team up with the Rose, the TS, and the TKR folks of the world, right? TKR ended up signing a treaty with TS. the alliance that we were creating with Hodor and Tigaz and some other folks, that ended up being not necessary because of the cheating allegations and all the findings that came out with the guinea pig whaling corpse and goons and just everyone's implosion, right, on NPO's side. So that was a long process too, in case you didn't know. So I know that was Partisan and Adrian. A lot of people on our coalition did a lot of work to try and cover that. Sorry if I said a Partisan and Adrian and they were part of that, but there are some other big, people that did a lot of work on that. And so this new alliance that we were creating ended up not being necessary, but we had this group of pretty awesome people. So we're like, well, shit, we should probably do something with it. And we came up with the name, the Enlightenment and stuff, and we're going to make it about like this made up. Lefty, you remember that? You're going to be the light bringer, remember? But anyway, so anyway, we just decided to rebrand Soup. Instead of making a new alliance, we just rebranded Soup Kitchen into the Enlightenment instead. And when we were doing this, we were in talks with Guardian and Grumpy with making a block, which was great because at the time Rose was courting them to join their block. And then TKR was courting, everyone was courting, TKR had a treaty with TS, that's what it was, but Rose really wanted Guardian and Grumpy. I think Guardian and TS had a lot of beef at the time. And so it was basically down, it looked like they were going to join Rose, and we ended up kind of snaking it from them. And there was a time where we were going to join Rose instead, but we just decided to make our own block called Hedge Money. So it was Guardian, Grumpy, and the Enlightenment is what I started off with. Well, there's an alliance called the Golden Horde that was in NPO's last time, where Birho, he led that, and his alliance ended up disbanding, and Sketchy was 2IC at the time. Well, I'd gotten along pretty well with Sketchy. Kigaz obviously worked with him when Kigaz was in KT. And so we really wanted Sketchy, but he had already committed to helping Akirio's alliance, North Point, because he wanted to try and help kind of like a smaller whatever alliance, because he hadn't done that before. He'd led Rose prior, then TGH with all these big names. So he wanted to try his hand at something there. So, but after talking to him, he's like, yeah, I'm down, but I'm already committed here. So then the priority was to get them to merge, to try and grab Sketchy. So we did, and that's where Children of the Light came into play. Because Sketchy hated the name The Enlightenment. so then we did Children of the Light, which was a play on the Enlightenment. And then so we had that pretty stacked government. We had Avakale come in from TS and just a really good gov. And then we had that block, Hedge Money. Well, at the time, from our point of view, and I know I've been talking a lot, and I'm going to switch it over to Lefty because Lefty's reign is about to come up here pretty soon. But during that time, the main threat then became, after NPO's last time, was what we know as Quack, which was TKR and TS. They had Allied and they also had TI. They were the largest block by far. And this is kind of where the dynamic of minispheres came to be. And, trying to look smaller and trying to put yourself in a spot where you're not going to be a target X, Y, and Z, right? So anyway, with Hedge Money, the main threat at that point was then Quack. We were really trying to get them to break up TKR and TS to try and make something new and kind of basically push reset on the entire politics, like a true one after NPO's last time, because we felt like that was we're going from one threat to another major threat, and they didn't want to do that. So then they viewed us as a threat, and then so basically the game became a staring match between Quack and Hedge Money. And again, this is just from my point of view, right? There's other blocks that existed. Swamp technically existed, so that'd be alliances like TI and FARC. Actually, I don't know what alliances were over there, so if they weren't in there, I apologize. But it was, there's a lot of those alliances over in Swamp, and I had pretty good relationship with Tyrion at the time, and that relationship was built up. We signed an ODP with them to try and take out Hedge Money, and that's where was that Duck Roll, I think. No. Which one was that?
You're jumping way too far ahead. So
I'm jumping ahead. I'm skipping. Yeah. I'm an old man.
So,
well, Lefty's even older, so this is bad news for me.
I am.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was the ODP was signed because TCW was giving a hard time, right?
That's
They were
right.
trying to flex.
That's right.
They had TCW Spear.
So
at the
yeah.
so they were flexing on TI, and
Were you
TI
back in at
came
this
to
point?
you. No, I was out,
Okay.
but I've never have truly been out with you.
Mhm.
So, and remember, I'm the one that led the TCW war, right? I
Mhm.
inherited that war. That was a week after you gave me leadership. Or, yeah, about a week or two after I took over. But the
Okay.
ODP was formed to take on TCW, not Quack. It was to keep
That's
them
right.
out of Quack.
Well, I mean, it was twofold. It was to also
Yeah.
protect us from Quack. That's right. It was to protect from
Yeah.
Quack, to give that sort of line of defense. Because versus Quack, I mean, there's no way a single hedge money couldn't do anything against Quack. It was a done deal. So yeah, that's right. So with ODP, I forgot about some of that drama. So Sphinx, there's some beef with Sphinx. He was supposed to join Soup, which, gosh dang it, and he wanted the title of 3IC. So if you ever talk to Sphinx, give him crap for that. He wanted 3IC, and he said no. So anyway, he became the leader of TCW. I've never even heard of a 3IC. Have you, Lefty?
No, just Spink IC.
Just Sphinx IC. But anyway, so that was strike number one. But the big strike number 2 and 3, the main things were his participation within the NPO war. He was trying to play both sides, and he was trying to talk to us like, "Oh, I'm really sorry they're doing this." And then in the meantime, he's in the negotiations, like trying to prolong it and do he was trying to figure out which side would be the winning side and play both. And he kind of got caught red-handed on that. So, and compared to the other alliances, he kind of got away scot-free. So we wanted to make him pay. Part of that, there's an alliance called Error 404 that formed around this time, and ended up getting to know Borg and Basebond pretty well. 2 really good dudes. And we ended up kind of snatching them away from TCW Sphere, right? So then eventually they became a part of Hedge Money. That caused a lot of tension there. We also had an ODP with Test, not the Test of today. Prior to the Eclipse test, there was several tests, but one of the test iterations was led by Boyce, and we had an ODP with them. And they also had a prot with Arrow 404, but we had this beef with TCW, and a lot of that beef actually came from there was a member that left North Point. I did leave a lot out. You're right, Lefty. There was a member of North Point that left called Odin, and he had the way he left wasn't great or whatever. I didn't really like. To me, I didn't really care that much, but he had billions of dollars, and he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So we ended up taking the billions of dollars and we used it for growth, and that helped our city growth program immensely. And then we also, our tax program was really good. Sketchy did a really good job with Command Economy doing Sketchynomics, right? And so our growth was better than any other alliance as total, even better than the TS's rows and TKRs. We just grew immensely. And a lot of that was the Kickstarter from those deposits. And that person went to TCW, and then that kind of caused a rift. But we also had that beef with TCW from NPO's last time. So there was a lot of tension there. And then Test refused to cut with TCW. They wanted to stay with TCW over us. So we ended up taking Arrow 404 away from them. And then we shortly thereafter, I think, is when I stepped down, and then Lefty. Or no, Key guys, Lefty. Which one of you guys took over? I think Key guys
took over first.
Key guys took over first. That's right. Then there's the 10-day war with TCW, and then after that, then Duck. Then I'll relinquish it to you because I think I deleted somewhere around there. So.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So what ended up happening was Kios took over his leadership. Then just before 10-day war, he was just like, I don't want this Starlight. So they went looking for another leader. And because of mine and Kev's relationship, he came to me and he asked me if I would step up and do it. It was either that or
we were going to merge into Error 404.
Yeah, I think that
Codal almost merged into Error 404 because I stepped down, gave it to Kigas. Kigas asked me to come back and lead because he was busy in IRL, and I didn't have time. I didn't want to. And then so the options, and then maybe a Curio, but we didn't want, that wasn't the option we wanted to go with. Sketchy didn't have time. No one had time, so it was
default
either
go to the one
just-
person that's dumb enough to do it.
right.
Yeah.
So it was either
That's
merge
exactly
into
what
Era
happened.
404 or have Lefty come on board.
Yeah,
And then the
that
time of
worked
the
out just
Lefty
great.
began. Yeah.
So I took over leadership a couple weeks before the 10-day war. 10-day war, it's irrelevant to any politics that goes on. It was just an irrelevant war that a grudge match had to be settled with ECW. I wasn't even a part of the Odin thing. I wasn't even in Children of Light at the time. But I always I always run in the same circles. It's just what you do. You make friends, you develop relationships, stay close to them, right? So I stepped into it, green as grass, even though I ran an alliance back in CN back in the day, but greener than grass, and took over. It was a very fortunate thing that I had the gut that I had. Anyways, so I'm going to skip over that. And then we lead up to, I think it was early October or late September. Swamp was getting nervous about Quack because Swamp was very, very bloated, like huge. Even though they were all ankle biters, like less than 10, like 10 city type deals, they were bloated as all hell. I think at one point they had like 1,500 members, or maybe just over 1,000 were the members, right? Like that's a lot. So they were getting nervous, and no one really liked the idea of Quack existing. And so they approached us about a defensive agreement, like secret treaty, quotation marks, evil. Anyways, and we said, yep. They approached, actually, they came to us and Children of Light first, and then we pitched it off to the rest of Hedge Money. Hedge Money wouldn't move in and agree to do anything like that without the support of Rose. At the time, we couldn't get the support of Rose. Not officially in any capacity. It was all handled through like back channel, a back channel, a back channel. Like it was a little bit ridiculous. But excuse me, I cannot remember exactly how Duck Money went, but I do. Duck Money, Jesus Christ!
I like that name way better.
Duck Hunt, yeah, Duck Money. Of course
Duck
we do.
Hunt. Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt went. I can't remember exactly how it went, but I remember Partisan.
Real
calling
quick,
it
who
out, right?
who was the secret Hedge Money leader at Lefty?
It was me, completely and
If you
utterly.
guys remember that
So
meme.
yeah. So I'll get to that in a minute. So what ended up happening there was that because Grumpy wouldn't move without Rose support, I turned around and went, oh, well, we got Rose support. Well, I didn't know 100% at the time. I heard inkling, like I heard through the grapevine of a grapevine that we would if the war did break out. Kiosk, the jumping kangaroo, he wasn't actually around at that time. It was Sketchy and myself that was basically running point on all FA. And then I think it was a month went by and all this got leaked because Spinks, I believe it was, even though TCW Spear had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with this because we wouldn't work with them. And that ended up blowing up into a big war, big battles over, secret treaties came up, and, it eventually led to, Quack splitting, which is what everybody wanted in the first place. Like the truth is, like Quack at that time was untouchable by, like it took 3 different blocks to knock him down.
Get in? It's been how many years? 3 years now? Can you get into the secret treaty stuff? Like, can you talk about that, or is that not? I mean, I think that's kind of the point of this, right?
I can.
Let's get into the nitty gritties. Yeah.
So, like I said, it was, they came to us first. They never agreed to do an offensive. They wanted a defensive thing. But because we wanted Quack to go down, we were willing to like stretch the truth a little bit there to get our allies on board with it. Like, I shouldn't say we were. I was willing to stretch it a little bit. And so, you know what? Screw it. I'll just sell myself down the river here. This has been long enough away, and people got their own opinions of me anyways. So I sort of just ran with the whole idea because I knew that even if we went offensive, I could talk Swamp into coming offensive with me. I wasn't worried about Swamp not going offensive So I set a timeline, myself with some others, a timeline of when we could possibly go offensive, because we knew it was going to take a little bit of time to turn public opinion, and everyone buying into it. So we set this timeline about when it could realistically happen, and we started working that way. And we started pushing hedge money, our allies in hedge money. Mainly myself started pushing it, and then it started to pick up traction. And then the secret treaties, like the Rose stuff, we found out, when I found out officially that Rose was going to support was a couple of days before the war actually broke out. What I heard before that was a good 3 weeks beforehand. I heard Rose would support it. Now, I trust the person that gave me the information that they already spoke to Rose. Rose said they would go. They spoke to somebody else who said, yeah, they can gather enough support to go into on it. I'm not privy to Rose's internal conversations. I don't know. I'm going by the word of the people that I trust. That's where all that secret stuff came from. That's why I felt confident with it. Confident enough to push hedge money and to start working Swamp to agree to go on completely on the offensive. So when they came out and they made, oh yeah, these secret treaties, they're offensive and you're coming after us to beat us down. Well, we denied it at first, of course, like you would. But they're not wrong. They were never wrong about it, because that was the angle we were going with. Do I regret that? No, I do not. I think at the time it was the right call, because it did take 3 blocks to knock them down. And even then, everybody has to pay the piper, right? I got mine. Everyone gets theirs eventually, right? I don't want to go into specific and name other people because they're not here for it, so I'm not going to do that. That's just disrespectful. But I will tell you my end of the things, and I will openly confess that, yeah, I did push it. But so either which way, I don't want to run off too much of a tangent with Duck Hunt, because we know how that ended up, right? We know that ended up leading to the conversation of, oh, now Swamp is too big. So then TI and TFP panicked and they formed Oasis, which created this bad blood with the rest of Swamp. And at the time, we all thought Swamp was going to disband. So we went after the alliances in Swamp that we enjoyed, which was TCW, because I had a relationship with RH at the time, who was the new leader of TCW, and Ampersand, which was ran by Kilo and Hannah.
Former Soup.
Yeah, former Soup, and which 2 people I greatly appreciate and I trust. So I really wanted to get them into hedge money. So after the whole war and that build-up period between the end of Duck Hunt to Guns of Rose, no, sorry, it would be the Swamp War, the one where Black just collapsed Swamp because of Atlan. So that whole point, I was trying to expand hedge money to include Ampersand and TCW. Well, of course, Grumpy wasn't going to agree to that. Guardian wasn't likely going to agree to it either. We sort of got had 404 because we had a relationship with 404 agreeing to it, because we had a good connection. Oh, thank you, little buddy. Can I have a piece? Yes. Awesome, thank you. Here you go. Thanks. I'll be in shortly. Okay, sorry, that was my son. So I was trying to get my friends in, because the best allies are people you can trust. And I knew I can trust Hannah and them. Either which way. So it turned out that TKR wanted to do something. They were looking to leave. And we were like, yes, that's a good idea. But the stipulation was we sort of wanted to merge TKR's little section of of Quack into hedge money.
Yeah.
I didn't like the idea because, like I said, I was trying to pick up the pieces of Swamp. But at the time, I had a bunch of personal stuff going on. Like my grandfather got diagnosed with cancer at the time. My uncle took a turn the worse for cancer at the time. And I was going through some personal things in my own head. Mm-hmm. And so I struggled to maintain activity. So I couldn't push what I wanted to do. So I made
went along with it, basically.
Yeah, I went along with it, but I had it built up in my head that You know what war I'm really going to want to have? With Rose. And mainly the reason I wanted it with Rose is because the whole time, Rose kept placing the blame of everything they were trying to do. They play shadow politics at the time. I don't know what they're like now. I'm out of the FA game. Understand? I am completely out of it.
They're much better now.
They're much better. But at the time, they were very shadow. Like they wanted us in hedge money to break up Swamp. They wanted a bunch of different things, and they wouldn't take responsibility of their own, right? They were just like, oh, no, we won't do that, but you guys could do it. So that really rubbed me the wrong way. Excuse me. And so I said, screw it. I want to clap Rose. No sense in clapping TS when they just formed a new block. No sense in keeping TKR out if that's what everybody else in the block wants to do, because that was the truth.
Well, the thing is, too,
404 in ourselves.
TKR really wanted to smack that Rosebud too. At that point, that was kind of what brought people together. So Hollywood actually, because I was part of that conversation, and that looked to me more like a coalition, and then it just kind of turned into a block. You know what I mean? Like at first it was a coalition.
They approached Grumpy about forming a block with Grumpy, right? And Grumpy didn't want to split from us and stuff. I believe that's how it goes. Like my memories, this is a long time ago, boys. Like my memory's a bit hazy. And so that ended up happening. So we got to TKR came to us and said, okay, this war is going to end. We can form the block now. Everybody else agreed to it. I said, screw it, let's agree. But I had the intention of pulling Children Late out of Hollywood immediately after. I just wanted to get my Rose War. I had no plan, zero plan at the time of what to do. Kios, he was very busy with school, but he was always open door to me. If I ever messaged him, he messaged me back. So I asked him about what we should do. He's like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And then, so Hollywood forms, we had the Guns N' Roses War. That was what that's Guns N' Roses. And then we left after Guns N' Roses. Just after Guns N' Roses War ended, 404, which Rebel from 404, who was with me in Soup Kitchen, messages me, and he's just like, man, I really don't like how that happened. I'm just like, I know. He's just like, we're going to pull out of Hollywood. I'm just like, oh, that's funny, because we're pulling out of Hollywood. He's just like, are you really? Yeah, and he's just like, that's awesome. He goes, what do you want to do? I goes, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. So we left, and Ampersand, I believe it was, signed us, which was Mystery Inc. Mystery signed us to a treaty just to keep us nice and safe until we can form a block. Again, this whole time I'm trying to peel Ampersand away to come with me, because I just love Kilo and Hannah. I didn't care if they were trash or not. Doesn't make a difference to me. I just love those two people so much. I still really enjoy them both. And excuse me, I'm eating beef jerky right now, and it's delicious. But any which way, so we signed that treaty with Mystery Inc. Why we went around trying to build a block. So I was talking to Spinks actually at the time, and Spinks mentioned to me, hey, you know what would be a really good ally for you to pick up? You should pick up Weeb. I'm like, why would I pick up Weeb? I had no idea who these people were.
Weed. I said weed.
No, that's different.
Sketchy's getting
Casual Friday, remember?
His puff on, yeah.
So Spinks told me, why don't you pick up the Weebs? And I'm like, fuck Weebs. But either which way, I started looking at their stats, and I asking people around about them. Everyone spoke so highly of them. And so I'm like, okay. And Spinks put in a good word, but then he goes, you're going to end up having to take Aurora as well. Okay, Aurora at the time is not the Aurora what it is now. Aurora really, they sucked. And we were very hesitant on it. And then I started speaking, like I had a relationship with Jesus Christ, English language. Before, from my time in Acadia. So I started speaking with him. And I developed this very big like for them. And then it turned into I wanted Aurora. So we invited Aurora and we to this project as we went and tried to pick up other alliances. And then we were talking to Hand of Faith. Was it Hand of Faith? Yes, Hand of Faith. And so we were just going to say screw it,
Street.
split. Yeah, and Street at the time. Yes, that's true too.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
so we were going to.
Did the merge happen yet at this point?
No. This
Okay,
was
then
still
not
before,
the street then.
not the Street. Finally done the jerky. Sorry. And so that ended up coming up. And at this point, I was burnt out. And I was angry at this game, like so angry with the player base. I was just spent. And so we approached 404 with merging together. And because we had a strong relationship, like me and Base worked together pretty good, but we had a strong relationship with Rebel. And Rebel was there too, I think at the time, something like that. So either which way, we both agreed.
Are you going to go in on the Rebel thing? That anymore?
Or no? Like, how much more do you want me to go in on the Rebel thing? Like, you guys ask questions, man. Like, I'm not sorry, I can't read the chat right now. So someone just if anybody has questions, just someone pitch it in voice.
He came from that community, right? The Codal community.
Well, Rebel started out as Soup, right? Well, he came from KT, went to Soup. So we always stayed connecting, right? Like, that was our big bond, was that we were so intermingling with each other. Like 404 and Children of Light, we intermingled with each other a lot. Like, we shared the same level of derpiness at times, and it was beautiful. Like, we had such a great relationship. Like, I loved 404. I know people don't, like, I didn't have the same relationship with 404 that you had, Kev. Like, I didn't have to worry about, I never had to lay down the law with them or anything like that, right?
Early era 404 FA was rough.
Yeah. See, I never had
rough.
to experience any of it.
Oh,
so they were really good allies.
So many fires.
Like, I don't think I've ever had an ally so thick as them, because they would literally do anything and everything we asked, and it wasn't like we were telling them what to do. I spent a lot of my time trying to get 404 to be more active in, don't be scared to come out and tell me what you want. And they started doing it, especially when Rebel moved up. And so
Rebel went there to kind of help Era 404,
he did,
right?
He did, yes.
And then
but a lot of people tried to, right? And the 404 was never a bad, they're not a bad alliance. They never were. They just had moments because they were all brand new players when they formed, right? Like, there was no age there.
Right.
Like, talk about in game years, right? Like, they were raiders during Mythic. Were they a part of that as well?
Yeah.
So they were raiders and stuff like that. Like, I don't know my 404 history. Sorry.
I'm thinking of Eclipse was in Mythic. I think they kind of came from
Eclipse was, but I thought them and Eclipse were both, because there was a couple of alliances that formed because of Epic.
Mythic.
Sorry, I work out in the sun, so it fries my brain.
No, you're
good.
Good.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
the Blitzers. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So that merge ended up happening because they got burnt out.
Right. So when I came back to the game, I went back to Arrow 404. I know when I went there originally, it was to help because their FA just kept having fire after fire after fire. I went through one of my phases where I was bored and wanted to help fix something. And then the fallback plan is if they kept derping it up, we would maybe work on potentially eating them. Was the fallback plan. Like, that's right. That was kind of the thought. But the main thing was to fix them. Hopefully help fix them. Good to go, whatever. And then I think Rebel had the same idea too, right? And so, and then, fast forward, when I came back to them, they were in a pretty rough state, and then the merge ended up making sense. So then, the Total ended up taking them in, and then the Cataclysm rebrand happened, right?
You got to keep in mind too that we're not saying that Children Light wasn't in rough shape either. We were in rough shape at the time.
Your bench. Yeah,
our bench was horrible.
Right.
we were all so burnt out, like because we rolled with the same gov for a very, very long time, and people were getting tired, burnt out. Just you got to take breaks from this game. Let's be honest here. I still make sure I take breaks. So we ran into a problem where I had no replacement. I had no successor. And I tried to get certain people to step up and want to do it. And everyone was just like, not a chance. Go get fucked, Lefty. Oh, pardon the language. I guess there might be children here. Oh no, my kids aren't here. I don't care about your kids. But I just had no one to do it. And I sort of knew that my days were ending. And what the hell? There was something else that was going on, but like I said, my memory's a bit foggy with this, and I apologize.
In the midst of the merge, Charlie, the original Co-Soup founder, was talking to me about coming back, and I wanted to meet because I deleted. I came back. When I came back, I just kind of wanted to mess around. I came back on Arrow 404 to help them out, to have some kind of a goal, but I really wanted to like meme and have some kind of fun too, right? And so the street thing really appealed to me with Charlie, because the whole thing was just a big gag. I'm not going to go too in depth on that because it's about Cataclysm, but I do remember talking to, it was mostly Kigaz on this one, and you too, Lefty, but I want to say, like, basically the idea is I wanted to meme. Kigaz is like, I don't think it's going to work. Actually, it was with you. You said, Charlie said he's coming back, but I doubt he comes back. I bet you he quits within a week or something, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah, I did. I said Thursday never comes.
Right. And so I'm like, no, it'll be good. And then I got this really awesome group of players, really cool folks, Riddler, Borg, Tiger Fire, Jerry, all these awesome folks came together, and we did this meme alliance, and we wanted to join the Johnsons basically and just fuck around. And it was a really good group, but I needed my Charlie for it. I didn't have the Charlie. And so, and then the fallback, like we were thinking, okay, if people really want to be serious, we could always join this clock thing, because that clock idea, what is now known as clock, was on the back burner for a while, even in the tail end of your participation in Hollywood. You're talking about making your own block, I remember.
Well,
and so
yeah,
and so that was kind of the idea, is in talks with Air 404 merge. I was gonna go make the street. I wanted to mess around. I thought it was gonna be fine, fun, whatever. And then if people wanted to be serious or play regular politics, then we would go back into clock, was the thought process, potentially. Like, that was an avenue that we had. So anyway, and then street ended up not working out, and so we folded back into Cataclysm. And I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So then Street folded into us. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff that was going on at the time. Like, when Clock was forming, it was kind of different, because like, like there was sections that really wanted Eclipse, like so bad, like so bad, because we wanted to peel Eclipse away, because Eclipse to us had the potential of being an all-star alliance. Like, I'm not joking. Like, where Eclipse is now, thank God Clock happened, because that gave them the room to be what they turned into. And Eclipse is not a bad alliance at all. Not at all. Like, I will rag on them, because in politics, I will rag on everybody in politics. But we saw what they could have been, and they were heading that way. We saw the trajectory that they were going, and we knew that with our mixture, because 404 filled the gaps that Children of Light had, and Children of Light filled the gaps that 404 had, because we gave them
competence. I'm just kidding.
I want to go that far, but I mean, because Decca and stuff came over too, right? And that added a lot.
Yeah, Decca is very organized.
Yeah.
Like,
hey,
Velyni.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, Lefty. I know when I had just joined TFP and Harry was still leading their FA, Eclipse was on the top of his list too.
Of course.
They definitely, that was like, I joined and he's like, this is my focus. Like, we want Eclipse. So they were definitely a hot commodity.
Oh, they most definitely were. Like, no one could doubt that. And they should take that as a giant feather in their hat. We also, because I believe it was Rebel and Base and a couple others from 404 had a relationship with Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we were still ready to kick off Clock with just KT. I mean, not KT. Yeah, it would have been KT because they ended up with Hand of Fate, right? So with them, Aurora, Weebs, and Cataclysm. We are ready to kick it off. And then in the 11th hour, we get word that, hey, Eclipse is actually looking to move over, but they won't do it with Hand of Fate. And we're like,
I remember there was
So-
talks with a few different people because with the Clock, prior to Clock, right? Like the Legion.
Yeah,
the Legion was
the
one.
Legion and stuff. But
they
the
regretted
truth
that
is we were
decision.
just trying. Yeah, that was a bullet dodge.
Yeah.
But there was potential there too. They just needed some alliances that fail don't fail because they're incompetent. They don't fail because they're bad people. I don't know how I feel about Legion anymore. I don't pay attention enough, so I apologize. But some alliances fail because they're taught incorrectly by their protector and everything else. Give me 10 minutes. Okay. So because they're protected wrong or they're not pushed to be better. And that's where I write off some alliances. I don't think I would like to have seen how Legion would have turned out with us because we were very pushy. Who else? I know Legion was a priority for us as well, but it was hard getting other people to buy into it. But either which way, because we had enough derp in the eyes of some of the other people with Aurora alone that we couldn't handle much more. So I'm not even I don't even remember who else. I think I still have a list of target alliances on my computer somewhere, but I'm nowhere near it. So when Clock formed up, Eclipse came in the 11th hour and said, hey, actually, we might be interested in this, but this is a stipulation. So Kios, having the relationship that he has, spoke with Hand of Faith. I want to say it was Hand of
Faith?
Faith. I'm not Fate. Yeah, because
I mean, Faith works too, you know.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, bad. English language is hard. I can barely speak English, even though I'm an English speaker. And I know Kios spoke to them, and they were willing, for the betterment of the block, to take a back seat, and they just stayed as aligned with us, with the hope that we would eventually get the Eclipse to agree to enter into a full treaty with them, so they become full-on members. I don't remember exactly what the beef was. I don't care. I view a lot of it as
with
petty and
KT and
childish.
Eclipse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I view a lot of the beefs that we have was pretty petty and childish now. Because honestly, if they would have been full members, I'm pretty sure Clock would have lasted a lot longer than it did. I can guarantee it. Because it sort of put us in a tight spot and it ruined relationships between each other.
I'm kind of glad it went. I mean, it caused a different dynamic within the game.
Yeah, but it would have been I think it would have been a lot cooler to see everybody together, everybody being able to discuss, everybody pushing it, right? We were very hard on Aurora at first. Very, very hard on them. And I'd like to say that it may turn them into a better alliance because I think like Aurora now is so much better than what they used to be. So much. It's night and day. I'm not going to take credit for it because I wasn't a big part of that. Like at that point, I'm starting to phase out and turning over leadership to Deca and stuff like that. And then I did step down and I stayed in the background because why not, right? They allowed me to just pick and choose my moments on when I wanted to participate, which was great for me. And then we decided that when the Clock formed, we needed a war. But we wanted to do this fun little war with Just Hit and Mystery Inc., who happened to protect Children of the Light and 404 during our transition from Hollywood.
It's pretty messed up, bro.
Well, I had a different plan for that. I thought it would have been great. And yeah. So what ended up happening was that we wanted to do another Rose War because at the time there was Blackwater and who was the other one? And Hollywood. Yeah, Blackwater and Hollywood. Jesus Christ, Shane. Anyway. So we didn't want to be a target targeted by Blackwater, and we sure as hell didn't want to get clapped by Hollywood because we were a lot smaller than them. So we figured, hey, look at Rose out there on their little island. If we clap Rose, that means Blackwater and Hollywood has to fight because we just took 2 players off the board. So since Mystery wasn't much of a threat to anybody, we decided that we'll have our fun little war with Hand of Fate.
I don't think so. Just to correct the timeline,
It was just Cataclysm. It was just
no.
Cataclysm and Hand of Fate.
You guys didn't hit. Just hold on, because if we go back a little bit, it was Guns N' Roses. What war happened after Guns N' Roses?
That wasn't our war. That wasn't ours.
That's right. It was Hollywood versus
because Blackwater clapped Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. And we
right?
wanted to do like a round 2.
We didn't. No, we did not want any war. We did not want to get clapped by either Blackwater or Hollywood. So we chose the lesser of all evils and clapped Rose instead. That was essentially all it was.
That's right.
I think there was more to it on other people's side, but that was basically what we thought would be the best outcome for us.
What war was that called?
That one, I don't remember what the Rose War was, but clock rolled. So we hit Mystery done that temporary signage with Swamp? Question mark?
Vein Small PP War.
Yeah, there we go. See, I don't have
a dumb name for a war.
Yeah, whatever. People shouldn't be allowed to vote on war names, I swear to God.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
I'm so old though, I can't handle these kids these days.
Yeah.
But any which way, that's why the Rose War ended up happening. The only thing that really screwed it all up was that when we went after Mystery, Aurora, instead of not changing their MMR, changed their MMR, which caused Mystery to believe that we were all hitting them, but it wasn't. It was originally just supposed to be Cataclysm and one other alliance, which we were just going to dump our info out and roll into Rose. Yeah, that did not work out. That backfired horrendously. See, what people don't... You could plan all the FA in the world. You can plan all the moves in the world. You can think it's foolproof. You can think whatever you want. But guess what? Someone somewhere is going to screw it up, and it's going to backfire and blow up in your face. And it did. It really did. Even though we got the W there, didn't work out for us long run, did it? Because look what ended up happening a couple months ago. That all stemmed from that moment. There. The bad blood, the distrust, all that. Remember how long, Clock couldn't do a thing after that without everybody going, they're just going to roll into another block, so we have to prepare.
Correct.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. I would say, I think that's kind of where the paranoia came into with, I'm blanking on block names now. They're all rolling together. But with, when we were in Wayward, well, at this point we were in Paradise, but with Cataclysm. So I'm trying to talk from the point of that, because at that point we still had pretty good insight on what their FA thoughts and decision-making process were, as we were making FA decisions together as Wayward. And I remember when Eclipse and Rose, we knew that Aurora, or we knew that there's a tight relationship there with Aurora and those guys. So we figured they had them in their back pocket, and then I think they just got done rolling someone, right? Then there's that extended nap. So we figured we had to have been next because they're staggering naps. And so we were working to figure that out. And then they, at the end of the day, Cataclysm decided to jump in on that war. And then, got rolled. That was their first loss, I believe, ever, wasn't it? That was their first Cataclysm loss
never lost
in the history ever. Yeah. So they had never lost
soup
a war
right to the end.
Correct. I mean, everyone lost NPL's last time.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, no one won that war. But that was their first L. And then the Rose War, that stemmed from Guns N' Roses and from the other Rose rolling, I believe, right? Because Kigas had previously been very tight with Rose. And I think that was a big factor with that push. And then they kind of gave them an out by milling up during that war. And I'm not gonna go too far into like some of these more recent things. I don't think we're gonna go in this series. I don't think we're gonna get too OPSEC heavy there. I think the OPSEC stuff's gonna be mostly from years ago because that's been long enough. But I mean, these are things that were stated publicly, even so.
Yeah, but like you go all the way back down to like that was my last war in leadership. After that, I went inactive for a long time. And then I never came back until Paradise. Yeah, that's when I came back to activity again. And but a lot of the things that happen now, or grudges that happened there a couple months ago, or half a year ago, whatever the hell it was, all stemmed from those moments, right? It takes time for all these stories to end. Like, that's the thing. That's why when everybody cries and whines about there is no politics, there is no this. No, there is. It just takes time. You've got to be patient. But if you want to create politics, go out there, take some chances.
There needs to be more like the
do what Aurora done. That was genius.
Yeah, well,
it just blew up in their face. They trusted the wrong person.
Genius, but I do like the proactive approach. But yeah, more proactivity. The pixel huggers suck. They're boring. Whatever. I get like you need to grow in order to compete, in order to be in a position to have more influence, etc. But like, come on, like you got to be proactive. You got to make some changes. You got to do something besides just sit on your hands. And I think that's been some of the main complaints with some of these not so great alliances that just don't. They just sit back and they let other people dictate for them what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I think that's why there's a lack of politics, because then it ends up just being like 4 people playing chess against each other. The game does.
Yeah. Like, let's not lie. Like, there's a dozen people that run the politics in this game. It's always been like that, but that's because people don't choose to get involved. They're too scared, and that's true. They're more concerned about image, or they're just like, oh, you're shifty, or you're whatever stupid term they want to come up with you today, or something like that, right? But the truth is, politics is that. That is politics. If you aren't willing to take a chance to roll the dice, and some will work out and some definitely won't, then what are you doing in leadership? Leave. Get out of leadership. Like, I'm sorry, it's true. Like, if you sit on that throne and
it causes stagnation.
And cause stagnation, you have no one to blame. If you are a regular member of Alliance, but you are active enough to take a gov role somewhere else and to push yourself somewhere else, go somewhere else. Get the hell out of the alliance you're in, because they're never going to improve. They're never going to be better because they're too scared to make a move. And we got too many people that's in the alliance leadership that does that. I've been saying that for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be scared. Like, it's pixels. Guess what? You get clapped. You don't become a target for a while. That means you get the opportunity to clap back. And it's true. It gives you time to get back into form. It allows you wiggle room.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely more nuance to it for sure, but yes. I mean, like, all in all, the principle remains the same. Like, if we're just sitting on our hands, if everyone's being reactive, then no one's being proactive, and then it's just
the only reason why Cataclysm and Children of Light wasn't clapped for as long as they were was because they were proactive. Exactly. If they weren't the ones pushing, they never would have got clapped. They would have got clapped quicker. Oh my God! Sorry, guys. I really hate to leave at this point, but my wife signals me to tell me that it is time for bed. And I know I never got into enough detail with things, and there's a lot of things that are very fuzzy.
I think it was good. It was good.
So I do apologize to that. But if you have questions and there's something you want to talk about, send me a DM. I'll happily talk about the past. I'll happily give you my life story. And understand that the character you've seen on radio shows before, the Left Behind character, is a character. If you want to talk about the past and just hear about things that went on, or you want to get to know who I am, then shoot me a DM. Like, I'm pretty decent when I'm not pretending to be left behind.
Yeah, no, you did good, but I understand it's bedtime. You get your old man bones get groggy.
Prune juice is on the way, buddy.
You need your pills. Don't forget your pills.
Yeah, sorry, I won't forget my pills.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you all for having me.
Thanks for joining Left Behind.
Thank you, sir. All right, any questions on just, one-off questions or whatever? Real quick, I would be remiss. I didn't mention. So back in Soup Kitchen days, I stepped down during the war, and Pika and Kilo kept that bad boy together for a long time, for months and months. So that was the precursor, also very important part of that Cataclysm story. So anyway, Riddler, I don't want to. I can't talk about that. Okay, so Lysander says, as a smaller alliance, you can't do anything without a partner, and there's a big lack of proactive partners. Well, I will say this. So, okay, fair, you can't do anything, but what do you mean you can't do anything? Because, I mean, I would argue there have been smaller alliances that do actually do quite a bit. Like, look at Oblivion. They're only 10 nations large, and they have a large FA presence. Right.
I think some of that goes into that too, Kev, is the mentality of what you actually want to do as well. You can't just be like, hey, let's YOLO Rose, and be a 20 alliance person
Sure.
expect to sign up. So it has to be realistic as well.
Well, let me throw this out there to you. So Codal, for instance, they couldn't match frickin' TS. It couldn't hit TS and win. It couldn't hit TKR and win. Couldn't hit Quack and win, right? But they formed a block, and then from there you adjust, right? What moves can I make to accomplish my goal, or whatever the case may be, right? Like, so it's that wasn't my main target as necessarily. I kind of wanted to have them break up on their own. I didn't really want to hit those guys, but regardless, just because you're smaller, you can use outside tools and be creative to try and figure out a way to meet your goals and be proactive that way. So yes, sure. Like, are you going to be as a 10 nation new alliance starting out, whatever, like, are you going to be able to form a block with Rose? No, probably not. Right. But you can learn in the meantime, and you can also try to grow your internals to become a viable alliance. And then in the meantime, make contacts, and then have certain goals, and then you can start to make moves happen.
And that's the biggest part. Real quick, just to touch on that, the contact part. A lot of individuals don't take the time to really get to know what other alliances want to do, what the criteria are. Build a rapport with them. They just kind of me at KT, for instance. We like to have fun, right? But I have people who I've never spoken to, or that I speak to once every 3 months, come up to me as like, hey, you trying to do a war? Like, no, I don't, we're not on that wavelength for me to want to go out and, do something, to help you, match your agenda. So, building those contacts and staying in touch with them, building, a friendly relationship is key. And don't underestimate what you're doing in the game. The takes that you say, when you're sitting in these public chats, the way you conduct yourself, the way that you critique other moves, your war competency when you do fight, those things all get taken into consideration.
Even for larger alliances, it's not just smaller alliances. That's
exactly.
a huge thing. Yes.
And
so, people take way too much stock in the leaderboard. That's what I guess that's really what my main point is people look at the leaderboard and they think it's the end all be all, like, oh, they're number whatever. And there's an alliance called Pantheon once upon a time. I think they hit number 1. They are one of the worst alliances in the game. I mean, Fark was top 15 for a long time. One of the probably the worst alliance in the game ever. Terrible. No one would want them as an ally. Even all it does is hurt your stats in war. I mean, they literally do nothing. Nuke turret kind of sometimes. But so the leaderboard means jack diddly. I mean, it's kind of fun for PR purposes. Like, look how big we are. Or with new recruits trying to hey, we're big and successful. You should join us too. But all in all, it means very little. And you will see yourself go up the leaderboard naturally if you're doing the right things, because more people will want to join you and you'll gain score because you'll grow, etc. But to just look at leaderboard and think it's the end all be all is very silly. And I think maybe those smaller alliances take too much stock in that. I hear that all the time. Oh my goodness, we made top 50. We made top 40. That's neat that you're growing, but I think you're putting way too much stock on the rankings. Oblivion was sub 50 for the longest time, and they could sign a major at an MDP at any point because they know how to fight, they know how to grow, they know how to play the game. So learn how to play the game, take care of your internal situation, fight well in wars effectively, and people will want you on their side, and you will have influence because people want you on their side. So,
I mean, even a losing war. I mean, look at Eclipse. You know, on just the recent fight. I mean, they were flashing amazingly, not laying down. You know, and just kept pushing through. You know, that those are the viable things that people want to look at. You know, they don't want somebody just decomming everything in a losing battle. You know, and just kind of throwing in the towel.
right.
You know, so that's another thing.
Or look at how many members we have. Like, we have more members. Check it out. I would say how many Gray Nations is a good indicator on obviously activity. I would say war performance is a good indicator. Growth, how much money that you're making a day as an alliance, whether it's low taxes or high taxes, like how efficient your nations are running, right? Because that's going to help with the growth of your alliance and the tiering and how effective you can be in wars, etc. There's all these different things that come into play. That again, I just think people. So, Lysander, to answer your question, sure, it's tough for a new alliance, especially a smaller tiered alliance, but you can make an impact really early if you take the right steps.
I don't think anybody would shoot down Requiem for wanting to do a war. You know, partisan. Well, let's assume Partisan's not on VM, and you know they're not in the state that they're in now. You know, they come knocking, and they're little 14 people strong. Is, hey, I want to do a war. You know, they have the rep and the ability, and you know the size to to make somebody want to say yes. I mean,
here, I'll throw this at you. Yeah, well, Partisan's been here. Partisan's been here for forever. I guess could be a like good old boys club, quote unquote, whatever people want to say. How about that? I see Lord Tyrion in here. My good, strong leader. So he's a good example. Harry is another decent example too. So like Tyrion joined the game. He wasn't in the game that long before he made the Immortals, right? And he came from a crappy alliance, and he just went to do his own thing. And he's one of the better political players in the game. So, like, I mean, if you're proactive and you put your mind towards something, I mean, you can do something. So, Harry, similar thing, right? He was part of kind of like a subpar alliance, and he made a lot of changes. You know, this alliance you're in, right, Velyni? And he made a lot of changes within there. He made a lot of inroads. I mean, granted, that was a larger alliance at the time, but still, like, it doesn't matter necessarily where you come from. It's what you do. It's being proactive.
Well, and if you think about it too, while we're on this point, you know, to Lefty's point of all these things take time. You know, same thing here, where TFP is now, you know, compared to where they started when they were very first founded. Now, it took a while to get to where they are, and you know, with every war, every leadership change, you know, every promotion, demotion, you know, they all play that part in that future. And if you just continue to learn from your mistakes, you know, you're going to get to the point to where you want to be. And you know, even if your small alliance doesn't work out here, you know, go somewhere else. Take that experience on why it didn't work out. Evaluate it. You know, look for something. I mean, you know, that was one thing with, you know, not to talk about myself real quick, but you know, that was one thing with TFP. What my aspirations were as a player, and my character, you know, TFP couldn't give me the weight that I needed, and so you know, I thought, you know, where do I want to go next? Where I have the military backing, I have the experience behind me, you know, I can learn while making an impact. You know, and that's how I ended up in KT. So, you know, if you're alliance too, you know, if you're somebody like Lysander, and let's say that the small alliance isn't working, or you know, just give an example, not saying it isn't or assuming, but you know, find somewhere that can help you reach those goals, and that you can, you know, play the game you want to play. You know, I don't want to sit around and, you know, collect pixels all day, and if I fight, I don't necessarily want to lose all day either. You know, so you know, I decided to end up in KT, you know, to have a good fighting alliance, and you know, not be bored. So
yeah, you know, I agree. I would also say I mean, the comments on here, having a good government is very important. That's why maybe if you don't like, as far as these micros that start, and grant there hasn't been a lot of new alliances starting, which is sad. Hopefully that changes soon. But these different micros that found, I mean, maybe join an alliance first before doing that and figure out Gov that way and how an alliance runs. Or if you want to try make an alliance, go for it, I guess. But like, if it's not working, then I mean, maybe try something different. Like maybe not make another alliance, but maybe join an alliance and figure out the game,
Right. If you
etc.
find
Like,
one micro and it sucks, don't just go make another micro.
right. It's probably not going to work out. So unless you just really like doing that, it's a lot of fun and cool, man. It's a game, so whatever. But just saying, if you want to try to make your alliance successful, and people are bashing their head against the door, like, how come this isn't successful? It's not fair. X, Y, and Z. Well, there is a tried and true method, and there's more than one way to do something for sure. But something that doesn't seem to deviate between alliances that are successful is that they have good governments and they have solid members and knowledgeable members.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to reach out. I guess just for anybody who listens to this or is listening, if you are a small, micro, or even a bigger alliance that's struggling, don't be afraid to reach out to government members of other alliances that are successful. There's a lot of people out there who actually are friendly and approachable, whether you believe they will be or not. I remember one of my things that I learned in Cybernations for the little bit I did play when I was in Iron was reach out to anybody, and if they don't respond to you, just go to a different member of government in that alliance, and eventually somebody will be friendly. And if you can build just a solid reputation with just one person in that government, then you got an in, and that's all you need is one in to make an impact. So
amen. So all perfect. Right, well, appreciate you guys. I know there's a lot of me and Lefty talking Velyni, but we wanted to give a real proof and concept. We wanted to see how the show went, what you guys thought. Please let us know if you want us to keep doing this. Just kind of wanted to do a rough draft. Anything we want to change, let us know. Any ideas on making it better, right? And I'll let you have the last word here, Velyni.
No, I was just gonna say thanks for coming in. It was a pretty quick concept Kevin and I talked about today. We wanted to do something a little untraditional for it, so hopefully it was a good time, and we'll, if we can get if everybody enjoys it, we can run this back again here in a couple weeks with another alliance and bring some maybe get a mixture of the new and the old on here. And just kind of, keep the dialogue moving. A little less about, the super old stuff, and, and a little more mixed bag.
Well, the only thing on that is we want to get into some stuff that can be revealed, right? And so don't expect OPSEC stuff the closer we get to the present. And that's kind of why we spent so much time back then, is because you can actually reveal that stuff. So
yeah, we'll get there though. We'll find a good happy balance and everything. So, but yeah, thanks for your guys' time. Enjoy.